Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. This is CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with the latest tariff developments. Prime Minister Mark Carney says he is disappointed with Donald Trump's decision to raise tariffs to 35% on goods not covered by CUSMA. It comes after the two sides failed to reach a deal by midnight Thursday. Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc says Ottawa will do the work to get the right deal for Canadians, not simply any deal.
I would expect to talk to Howard Lutnick next week. He and I agreed that we'd get together in the coming weeks. I know Ambassador Hillman is continuing to talk to counterparts in the American administration and on Capitol Hill. So the doors aren't closed, the doors are open, the conversations are ongoing.
LeBlanc says Ottawa will do what's necessary to support sectors of the Canadian economy and workers impacted by the U.S. trade action. The Trump administration cited Canada's failure to stem the flow of fentanyl over the border, even though Canada accounts for a very small percentage of drug seizures by the U.S. Ottawa's retaliatory tariffs were also mentioned as a reason for the increase. Trump gave Mexico, which accounts for the majority of drug seizures at the border, a 90-day extension of the current tariff regime. And from the get-go, Windsor was flagged as one of the cities that would most feel the pain from tariffs. So what does the latest increase mean for our community? Dawson Chen breaks it all down.
I'm Dawson Chen, and I'm standing here in front of the Windsor Assembly Plant, employer of 4,500 unionized workers. And I'm told that people here are nervous. More nervous than they were when Donald Trump went through with previous tariff threats this year. They're nervous even though the new 35% tariff doesn't apply to automobiles. It's because the grim impact of the trade war on automaking employers is now undeniable. Canada's auto sector was already dealing with a 25% tariff on all vehicles made outside the U.S. and a 50% tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum. The big three automakers have been reporting impacts in the billions of dollars. Ford says tariffs have cost it 1.1 billion Canadian in its second quarter. GM says 1.5 billion in its second quarter. And Stellantis Chrysler is predicting a 2.4 billion tariff hit this year. That Stellantis number is especially troubling here in Windsor. Currently, the plant is at full production after having fluctuating shifts earlier this summer, but job losses are on everybody's minds. There's also the supply chain, the feeder plants that depend on the plant's production for business. And yet, through all this nervousness and uncertainty, union leadership is still saying, don't rush into a bad deal. Don't follow the agreements that Japan and the European Union took, conceding 15% across-the-board tariffs and promising to invest hundreds of billions of dollars in the U.S. economy. I spoke with James Stewart, president of Unifor Local 444, earlier this week. He represents the thousands of workers at the Windsor Assembly Plant. He says that no deal is better than a bad deal. And he says that if Canada follows the agreements that Japan and the European Union took, it will be problematic for Canadian manufacturing. And he says his membership agrees Canada must stay strong in its negotiations, especially when it comes to the auto sector. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
According to an economist I spoke with, about 90% of Canadian exports are not affected by the 35% tariff. That's because most of them are CUSMA compliant, which means that they are mostly made within North America. The biggest issue with the tariffs, he says, is the uncertainty.
What's bad about it is not that there is a tariff for a few months and then we're going to sort this out. What's bad about it is that we don't really know how or whether we're going to sort this out. We know that with Mr. Trump, it could get worse. The real problem is, in the US and here, is that until we know how this is going to play out, businesses are going to hold back on investments. You see this happening in the US and in Canada. And investment is what creates future growth and future jobs. And so right now, everybody's very worried and holding back.
Let's pivot now to the latest on Gaza. Local advocates say they are exhausted and they are traumatized after nearly 2 years of the conflict. And they say the Canadian government isn't doing enough to end the violence. For 22 months, Palestinian Canadians in Windsor have been watching the violence unfold in Gaza. They say it's been painful and traumatic, and they feel abandoned by the Canadian government. Some say in the last few weeks it's gotten even worse, with reports of mass starvation intensifying.
It's like nothing you ever imagined humanly possible. You're living in a continuous nightmare. To see the sheer level of suffering and trauma, not only in Gaza, but also to us living here, like the pain that, like in my household, we haven't had a normal day. You don't have a normal day.
Maher al-Masri has siblings and cousins still in Gaza. He says his brother was killed by an Israeli sniper in December of 2023. And now his family is struggling to find food to eat that doesn't cost a fortune.
So they're lucky if they find flour to do bread, pasta, plain pasta. They do it with salt and water, or lentil soup. That's their meal, and they eat about pretty much once a day. Life is becoming extremely difficult for them. Quite honestly, they're wishing death.
The Gaza death toll has hit 60,000, with reports of widespread starvation, malnutrition, and disease, with limited aid able to enter the territory. A grim milestone in a conflict that began nearly 2 years ago after Hamas attacked Israel, sparking an offensive that has destroyed much of the Palestinian territory. All the while, a report came out in recent days that suggests arms still flow from Canada to Israel, even though the government has said it has not allowed arms shipments since January 2024.
To put it mildly, I feel betrayed.
And he's not alone.
We're watching our people every single day cry out to the world to help us, and the world is not only turning our backs on the suffering of the Palestinians, we're actually actively aiding and abetting Israel as it commits a genocide against us.
In the same week, Prime Minister Mark Carney said Canada would recognize a Palestinian state in September under certain conditions, adding to a shift among Western countries as they apply more pressure on Israel. Israel has said statehood would be a reward for Hamas. Advocates say placing conditions like demilitarization for statehood recognition is a recipe for failure.
Do you want to see a free country with no conditional? We don't want anyone to announce the Palestinian state with any condition. Let the Palestinians themselves to decide. Let them be free.
They say the last 2 years have been exhausting.
We are watching our eye on TV, watching our people getting massacred and proven a genocide right now. And we have to go out in the street, show the people, bring the awareness, lobby with the government, with the MPs, with everybody, face increased anti-Palestinian racism on the streets and campuses, in workplaces. And we still have to go on with our own lives. And that has been extremely devastating to the community. I mean, we feel let down by our government here in Canada.
For al-Masri, the top priority is an end to the violence. He calls on people to tap into their humanity regardless of faith or nationality to intervene.
Top priority at this time is to end the genocide. Send food to people and make sure they're surviving. And then we can talk about every other solution possible.
Let's turn now to our weather forecast as things are heating up again. Riley Lachuk is here for a quick look, our first look at weather.
Thanks, Katerina. Yeah, pretty pleasant day today, and this sets us up for a very dry and a very seasonal long weekend ahead if you've got any plans. But I will let you know now that we are looking at air quality becoming a concern once again, particularly as we head through Saturday into Sunday. So your afternoon temperatures, 24 in Windsor, 23 in Sarnia, 23 up into Cottage Country as well. We're looking at a 14-degree overnight low tonight in Windsor, a clear sky, and then we're back into the sunshine again for your Saturday at 25 degrees.
Thank you, Riley. Local Ontario alcohol producers are urging the Premier to say no to so-called private label booze products, such as Costco or Walmart brands of wine and spirits, warning that it'll hurt local businesses. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop has that story.
Right now, big box stores can sell wine and beer, but they'd like to stock their shelves with their own brands of booze, known as private label products. Costco is a big player. Its store brand, Kirkland, produces several types of wine, as well as vodka, tequila, and other spirits. So far, not allowed in Ontario. Walmart and other large grocery stores would also like in on the alcohol market here, selling products such as no-name beer and vodka. A letter CBC News obtained, sent to the Premier from the Industries for Local Alcohol Producers, shows consultations are happening. They raise their collective concerns about the potential of private label alcohol products coming to Ontario, saying it will have damaging long-term consequences for Ontario's economy, jobs, and communities. They ask the government to conclude its current consultation and shelve this concept. Top officials for independent grocers and convenience stores also signed the letter.
There's just no way we'll be able to compete on price. And I think that's the reason also that the craft brewers and the craft wineries in Ontario are also lined up against this, because they know that they'll end up getting blown out of the water too. There's just going to be some other casualties, and the independent grocers would be on that battlefield.
The Ford government has already brought in some big changes to Ontario alcohol sales, allowing beer and wine in convenience stores. And the province says it's committed to consulting on possible private label sales.
It's lucrative. There's a lot of money to be made by those independent retailers.
But this retail management expert expects this would mean bad news for smaller producers.
There's a major economic impact when it comes to lower prices. Private label tends to undercut name brands by 20 to 30%, if not more in some situations.
Though with minimum pricing for alcohol, some local producers argue prices might not be that different. The province says there will be no changes before 2026. And if this were to happen, it would prioritize local Ontario products. Lorenda Bradicop, CBC News, Toronto.
The gap between the country's highest and lowest income households is widening rapidly, according to Stats Can. But there are efforts underway to narrow it. CBC's Deanna Sumanak-Johnson has more.
Just in case. Harish Sugarton remembers the pandemic, which started when he was in grade 7.
My family had to walk a long distance to get just a vaccine. Once we had to get our second vaccine, it was much closer. It was easy to reach out.
An example of what happens when public health addresses specific community needs, the work Harish now hopes to make his career. The recent high school grad has been attending a special University of Toronto free summer program for 3 years. It introduces students from low-income neighborhoods to possibilities of careers in public health.
The idea is that if you ask a high school student what careers you know in healthcare, they'll list doctor, nurse, maybe 2 more. But there's so many more out there that fit and align with their skill sets and things that they're actually interested in. And the challenge is, how do you get into careers that you don't know exist?
The program is among several aiming to even out the playing field for students whose families may lack the resources. According to Statistics Canada, the gap between the country's highest and lowest income households reached a record high in the first quarter of 2025.
Having this exist is an absolute game changer.
Pathways to Education helps 9,000 students across the country, including providing language tutoring for new Canadians.
That biology homework is not written in Arabic. It's written in English. And so they may or may not have someone in their family who can translate for them. But we have a translator. And we can provide someone who speaks Arabic and English to decode that stuff for them.
Back at the University of Toronto, students are working on simulated real-life public health cases, and they're feeling inspired.
I changed from being an engineer, or I even wanted to be a teacher. And after I realized how many people are getting sick, public health is a really big important thing.
So that we know. As they spread their wings and bring the benefits of their expertise back home. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
Every year on August 1st, Canadians mark Emancipation Day. The Jubilee is a 3-day event happening in Windsor this weekend, celebrating Black freedom, culture, and creativity.
We hope that everyone will come. People keep asking me, is this for everybody? And of course it's for everybody. Emancipation only happened because slavery ended in Canada, which was a very part of our Canadian history. And because of that, the Underground Railroad could come into Canada. And that is why many of the Black families here in southwestern Ontario in particular are descended of the Underground Railroad, and so proud to be celebrating this particular part of our history.
On Saturday, there will be music and food at the Caribbean Center. On Sunday, a barbecue lunch at the Sandwich First Baptist Church with a gospel concert. And on Monday, a family gathering event at Jackson Park with a drum circle and a historical tour. When we come back, how descendants of a man who escaped slavery by coming to Canada are keeping his story alive. You won't want to miss it. Stay with us. Welcome back. As we mentioned right before the break, today is Emancipation Day, the day British colonies, including Canada, abolished slavery in 1834. Canada ended up becoming a destination for slaves escaping bondage in the United States, and many of them settling in southwestern Ontario. Their memories are preserved in a museum near Windsor. The CBC's Justin Escoto reports on why it means so much to him.
I'm Justin Escoto, and we're here at the John Freeman Walls Historic Site and Underground Railroad Museum in Puce, Ontario, which is about 30 minutes outside of Windsor, Ontario. I'm a 7th-generation descendant of John Freeman Walls and Jane King Walls, who were freedom seekers on the Underground Railroad back in the 1840s. I used to work at this historic site, and I'm here to show you a little bit of the region's rich Black history. This historic site sits is where the Underground Railroad had its end. John Freeman Walls was enslaved in Rockingham County, North Carolina in the early 19th century. He was close friends with his slave master's son Daniel, a white man. A relationship of this kind was unheard of.
When Daniel was older and he was on his deathbed, he entrusted his wife and 3 children to the care of John, and Jane was Daniel's wife. But these two fell in love, realizing that their only recourse was to make the perilous journey on the Underground Railroad to here, these exact grounds at the John Freeman Walls Historic Site and Underground Railroad Museum, where they built their log cabin in 1846. And that's exactly where our lineage stems directly from John and Jane.
The museum is an all-outdoors walking tour and features many important sites to the Walls family lineage. Visitors will see the original log cabin that John Freeman Walls built for himself, Jane, and their 9 children. The site also features a makeshift chapel dedicated in honor of civil rights activist Rosa Parks, who was a frequent visitor of the Walls Museum. But one that easily hits home is the Walls family cemetery.
Here is where John and Jane are laid to rest.
Such a powerful spot, eh?
Yeah, from Rockingham County, North Carolina to here.
And it's something that's so close to just the house that's over there.
I know, isn't it lovely? Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah, thank you.
Land stayed in the family for over a century and was eventually converted to a museum by Dr. Brian Walls in 1989. Now 79 years old, Walls says that the message is as important now as it was then.
You know, even today, we make the history relevant to today, even if some hardship and some consternation, that if they made it through back in the days of the Underground Railroad, we can make it through today.
Brian's daughter, Brittany Walls, is next in line as head operator at the Walls Historic Site. Growing up on and around the historic site, she says she's excited to take on a role so important to her.
So Dr. Brian Walls is my dad, and I actually grew up here barefoot. In fact, I remember running around on this deck, and one day Mrs. Rosa Parks and her entourage just showed up. So not only did I just grow up steeped in this and hanging around people like Mrs. Rosa Parks, I didn't realize until I was older what a gift it was and who those people were.
Dr. Walls employs local youth who've descended from John and Jane Walls to help in tour guiding and property maintenance. I was one of them back in 2019. He says that the work is much more than just a paycheck.
You know, they got to remember that they stand on the shoulders of great men and women that have gone before.
Freedom seekers would get north is by following the side of the tree that the moss grows on. And
for those who visit the tour, Brittany says she wants people to leave feeling uplifted.
The thing that makes our museum so special is that relationship of John and Jane. John, who was a black slave, and Jane, who was a white woman of Irish and Scottish descent, who didn't have to traverse the Underground Railroad experience, but out of love, she did. And so we're here today because of that, and I think that's how our message carries on. When you leave with a tingling of joy, everything you do that day just has a little pep to it. So that's what we hope, just to spread joy.
It's been over 170 years since John and Jane Walls landed on this site, and it's been an honor being able to share part of my heritage and a bit of Canada's Black history as well. I'm Justin Escoto with CBC News in Puce, Ontario.
Stay with us. We will have Riley Lachuk back with us after the break with your full weather forecast, including what is in store for the long weekend. Welcome back. It is time now for your full weather forecast, and for that, we've got Riley Lachuk back with us.
Well, thanks, Katerina. Yeah, I was mentioning that we are looking at air quality becoming a concern again as we get into the weekend here. I thought I'd start big picture, take a look at our visible satellite. This is imagery taken from satellite during the daylight hours, basically what's visible down here on Earth throughout the day. So looking at this map here, you can see a couple of things. First, you can see this trough in the jet stream that has brought us back into more seasonal weather, but also you can kind of see this sort of milky color here on the map into the U.S. Midwest and into parts of Manitoba and northwestern Ontario. This is all smoke from the wildfires that are burning on the prairie provinces right now. So that just gives you a sense at how far south some of this smoke and some of this haze has been picked up by our upper level winds. So what we have is a ridge in the jet stream in the west. This is leading to some very, very hot conditions for parts of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And then this trough over Ontario, which has dried out our air mass here, but also these upper level winds helping to bring down some of that smoke and haze once again as we get toward the weekend. So that's why I say we are looking at air quality again becoming a concern as we head into the weekend here, closer to the surface at least. High pressure really cleared us out once again. A very sunny sky today, some passing cloud here and there off of Lake Erie, but really that's about it for any real weather as we get through the next 24 hours at the surface anyway. We're looking at a very dry and a slightly warmer pattern as we get into Saturday and Sunday. So starting Saturday, sunny once again, and then the high starts to push through as we get into Sunday, and that is just going to keep our skies sunny, although hazy as we get into the day on Monday. So in terms of outdoor activities, I don't think you could find a worse long weekend for that, at least, except for the smoke and the air quality concerns that we're looking at. So you can see all those fires centered on the prairie provinces and how far south some of this sinks as we move this forward in time into the day on Saturday. You can see how our upper level winds really usher this into southern Ontario. So that's why I'm thinking when we get into some of these greens and orangey yellow colors, we're looking at that air quality health index elevating as we get Saturday into Sunday up into that 5 or 6 range, which is in that moderate to high range even as we get through the later part of Sunday. So keep that in mind if you have any outdoor activities, that if you're particularly prone or particularly susceptible to poor air quality, we could be running into that as we get through the weekend. Overnight temperatures, first thing in the morning, 16 in Windsor and Sarnia, Chatham-Kent slightly cooler at 12, but we're looking at temperatures back closer to seasonal into the afternoon, 24s and 25s as we get through the afternoon. 28 into Sunday, Katerina, and we're staying very seasonal as we get into next week as well.
Thank you very much, Riley. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a good weekend.